What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi and the Sheets. We're going to be talking a little early look Thursday night showdown. And we have an ugly game, but maybe, as Sheets was pointing out just pre-show, maybe a little bit of a, hey, at least we kind of know maybe who's playing tonight so far. Of course, anything's subject to change in the world of COVID and football and everything. But right now, we think we have some idea for it, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna have to get talked off of something this game, so we're gonna.
Ooh, I'm loving it. I know what it is going to be. Is it going to be the Ashton Dolan captain?
It's gonna be just 100% Ashton Dolan. I don't know exactly where I'm gonna put him, but it's kind of a tough fade for me.
If you watch them play, to some of these targets that he's had, they look for him. And with, we have Ty back out. We'll get into it, but I love that idea. And is it real that no one is going to play him?
No, he's going to be 40%.
That's what I have. That's what I have too. But why is it in the world is? Yeah. Anyway, whatever. Excuse me. Anyway, I do love the Ashton Dolan play. But let's talk about, it's weird to say positions because they don't really matter, but it's the easiest way to sort of break these things down sometimes for me. If you have to pick between these quarterbacks, who are you taking, and then why?
Well, I just shared my screen. Why don't let's start with the way we usually start. Well, let's start with our take on the game. So you have Indianapolis as a 14-point favorite, or 14 or 10, like something.
11, 10 and a half, and I love the Jets to cover.
Okay. In either case, like whether you like the Jets to cover or even like Indianapolis to cover, I think in both scenarios, the Jets passing game is just going to have to be in play, right? Whether they're staying in the game by passing or by, coming back from passing, I think it's, the Jets passing game is going to be in play. Where I do feel as though, so I'm getting to the answer to your question, that I don't think that Wentz is as game script proof as White is, believe it or not, in this spot. I think that, dude, let me tell you, and we talk about different takes and, how sometimes you're like on this basketball players before anybody else is and on these baseball guys before anybody else is. Dude, when people were handing like Carson Wentz, like the Hall of Fame statue, you were explaining how terrible he was. Like, you were like the first person to explain how bad Carson Wentz is. He really is the worst. I mean, like, just the stone worst. And, even I don't know if they held on last week or whatever, but it was in spite of Carson Wentz trying desperately to lose. I mean, like, he's really, really awful. So I feel as though I want to give Indianapolis a little bit of credit in that they'd like to not put too much in the hands of Carson Wentz if they can avoid it. So I do feel as though Indianapolis has their way. If they get even any kind of a lead, or whatever, it's just going to be the Jonathan Taylor show. Like if in fact they can do it, you know what I mean? Like, the Jets are stout, whatever it is. But I feel as though, and this is kind of weird to say, right? I think that the Jets quarterback side is a hell of a lot safer in some way than the Wentz side, which seems kind of strange, no?
I mean, I'll tell you what, who doesn't think it's strange? Me or the projections.
Okay. Right, there it is.
Projected to throw for more yards.
Yep.
He has a slightly worse 1.5 touchdown prop, which they both have. And I'll tell you one bet I would make right away, and that's to Carson Wentz to throw a pick tonight. Plus 116, whereas Mike White throwing a pick is minus 275. So if we're going to think it's so sure that Mike White throws a pick, I think we should certainly think about Carson Wentz with a pick too.
Wait, can I get the other side of that? Can I get White no pick at plus like 200?
I think probably even a little better.
Right?
I would guess that it might even be a little bit better.
Right.
You're going to assume, especially with being the team trailing and everything, that he's going to have to throw one up for grabs at some point, or at the very least, if not much, just make a bad play. Right. So I'm siding with White, but I like both of them tonight. And my issue with Carson Wentz had more to do with the perception. I mean, people were talking about him like he was the greatest quarterback ever, when meanwhile, the guy who had actually been the best quarterback and won them a Super Bowl, and on top of it, had a year where what did he have? He had 25 touchdowns and 1 pick the whole year, Nick Foles. And then they wanted to get that guy out of town. We'll bring Carson Wentz back. Carson Wentz having a great season that 1 year, gets injured, and then Foles comes and does it again. I mean, this guy's incredible. Why didn't that? So I was more just like, I would rather have a guy like Nick Foles. I don't care who looks better in the pocket and all this stuff. And by the way, I think Indy has done a good job completely crafting their offense to protect Wentz. He's also the worst quarterback in modern history at being pressured. And the Jets at times can get a little pressure on you. I do trust the play calling, though, of Indianapolis, which is why I don't think they'll put him in too many vulnerable spots. So I like both quarterbacks actually today. I do agree that White is definitely the preferred one for me. There's definitely a path where Jonathan Taylor goes completely nuts and takes over this game. I think that what I like to do on these slates usually is play the Nyheim Hines. I'm a little worried about his role being limited somewhat unless he breaks a big play because, like you said, like the Indy playing from ahead. Although I think this is going to be a good game. I saw nothing in White that leaves me anything but confidence in the guy. And maybe you could say it's an overreaction, all this. That's a tough matchup he was going into. That's a good Cincinnati team that they beat. Yep. And the Jets, like with all their mess, they got just pummeled by the Patriots a couple weeks ago.
Excuse me, they won in Tennessee.
They won in Tennessee, yeah. They have some talent on this team, and that leads into the Michael Carter thing. So you can't play everybody, but obviously Carter, Taylor stand out. There's a chance that Ty Johnson might be in the mix as the other play at running back here because he did get a lot of the passing work, caught a touchdown against Cincinnati. I mean, Michael Carter overshadowed it because he had the monster day and is the regular guy we look at. Between the two running backs, they did catch a ton of these passes. And Ty Johnson, you could argue, is sort of a little bit of a receiver at times for them. But between the two of them, they caught, what did they catch? 14 passes and they each caught a touchdown. So both the running backs are in play for both sides. I think that one way to get a little bit, off the board would be to overpay or seemingly overpay for Ty Johnson and maybe fade Carter. It doesn't feel great. I love Carter. I'm a big Carter guy, but I do think that's one route you could consider going. You'll get much lower ownership on Ty Johnson, and he just put up 20 fantasy points last week also. If things break his way, he could be the one who gets in and not Michael Carter. So that's one thing I'm considering doing is potentially playing Ty Johnson and maybe Hines, but more likely Ty Johnson and Jonathan Taylor.
By the way, did you see that? I mean, I presume was the catch of the day. It's got to be the catch of the year. Did you see that Keelan Cole catch?
It didn't even count, and that was the greatest catch of the year. It pissed me off.
Unbelievable.
I don't even want to watch it sometimes with the NFL. DJ Moore caught a pass and then rolled over and then popped out as he was getting up, and after a touchdown, and they don't count. Like, I knew my day was shot when that happened at the beginning. And by the way, it's within the rights of the rules for all you NFL lovers and NFL nerds out there. I completely understand the rules. It's a terrible rule. It's a terrible, terrible rule. When every human being and anybody's grandmother could come in and pick out what's a catch and what's not a catch. Right. If the guy catches the ball, he catches the ball. It doesn't matter he's popping up after celebrating 5 seconds later. Right. It's like the old Calvin Johnson one where he did the somersault and then jumped up and spiked. I'm like, that's not a catch. Anyway, sorry. But Ty Johnson is something that you can use to get a little bit off the board. I think he'll be pretty low owned today. And I don't think I want to get into the third string running backs, although LaMichael P. Ryan will probably get a tiny bit of work also, potentially in the Jets backfield. I don't think I'm going to get into any of that.
Whatever happened to Denzel Mims?
He plays I think he's with Washington now?
No, he's on the Jets.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. Well, there's the
other. He was a big home run threat last year.
Right? Cam Sims and Steve Sims. That's my bad.
Yeah, no, Denzel Mims had some. I'm just looking at like all these guys in my projection models that aren't really showing up too much. Like I have him projected for like 3 fantasy points or whatever. I just remember he had a lot of promise last year. I was wondering what became of him.
I never remember him having any promise, but I definitely wouldn't argue you on it because I don't know enough.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he was chalk a few times at the end of last year. I promise you.
Maybe on showdowns or something.
Okay.
I kind of remember. I know why. That's because the whole team had COVID. That was when Crowder and and all the Barrios. They literally lost like 5 receivers to COVID. Like it wasn't like they lost like 3.
Well, he's got multiple receptions in 2 of his last 3 games. He's got a reception. He's got 2 targets. He's 2K. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, like for me, honestly, like where the showdowns usually are just like all kinds of unsurety, whatever it is. Look, I don't know how many we're allowed to show here, But I really think, and if you look at my screen, if you play the 4 guys that are in this thing, I mean, you're not going to be particularly different, all right? But I can't find a universe where these 4 guys don't make my lineups. I mean, I'm going to find them because it's just, that's the way Showdown works. But if you play Jonathan Taylor and Doolin from Indy, and you play Crowder and Mike White from the Jets, I mean, I think those 4 guys for me are just an incredible core. You don't have to play Wentz if you don't want to, but you can. You don't have to play Carter from the Jets if you don't want to, but you can. But I'm finding it difficult to get away from any of those 4 guys right now. I mean, I might find a way, but talk me off of some of this.
Ty Johnson is my talking you off of it.
Ty Johnson as opposed to who?
As opposed to Carter.
I don't have Carter in here.
Well, then play Ty Johnson.
No, what I'm saying is like the 4 that I have in here: Taylor, Doolin, Crowder, and White. Right.
So yes, those guys are. That's all good, but I think you're going to have fairly chalky lineups.
Okay. Well, that's the answer. Okay.
So that's why I'm saying. So if you could add Ty Johnson to the mix, instead of using Michael Carter, because you're going to want one of those. Look, when you throw the ball 20, what do you throw? 20 times last week to his running backs. I mean, look, I love Mike White. I thought he played great. I thought he made some great reads. I really, really enjoyed him. But I mean, he was throwing the ball to his running backs 20 times in the game. You know what I mean? And he threw it at 50 overall, based on, to his credit or whatever. So, that was wild how they were using the running backs in the passing game. So I think you need a Jets running back. I think you need at least one QB. And then I really think you can go every different route with this.
Talk more about the Indianapolis receivers. Talk about Pittman, Pascal.
I'm loading our NBA video right now. So can you talk for 1 second, just a little bit about who rates well for you, and then I'll jump in.
Yeah. So Pittman is obviously the alpha on Indianapolis. I mean, he's the main guy. So that would be the first thing that it would be nice to play Pittman as the top wide receiver. And then, so, Bobby's been on top of this Indianapolis thing from the beginning with the guy that got ruled out, not T.Y., the other guy.
He got hurt. Paris Campbell, right as he was starting to come along.
Right. So that's by the way, that's why Doolin is popping like that, is because like both he, Campbell, and T.Y. are out. So I think Doolin's a legit, third receiver, behind Pascal and Pittman. So yeah, if you could get in Pittman, that's great. And I do think that even though Doolin's a good player, I do think that Pascal's probably more likely to score more fantasy points. And then you have Mo Alley Cox at tight end, who I think is live. And I think that Jack Doyle is live too. Again, what I like about the slate is I'm not worried too much about these like guys I've never heard of, And it's kind of sick when you've actually heard of Ashton Doolin now. But so I think that these guys are all very logical, and the reason why I think Doolin's going to be 40% owned is he makes all of this. I mean, you can play literally whatever you want with a $200 guy. Who do you think? I guess this is an interesting question. I mean, it's not that interesting, but who do you think is going to be more heavily owned in the captain between Wentz and Taylor?
Wentz and Taylor.
I think these are going to be the 2 highest owned captains.
I think they'll be high owned. I think Taylor would be the highest owned.
Okay.
That's gonna tough one. You know what I mean? Honestly,
it is close, right? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's that far off. These sound like very base. So what I'm trying to do is set like little rules for what I would want to try and target tonight. Okay, so because going through the receivers for both sides, I definitely prefer Jamison Crowder, but I want to make something really clear. That was a show-off game last week. And that was why I got onto him literally last minute. When you realize that I had lost track of the trade deadline, and literally another show reminded me after we got off the air, which I'd already heard another show talk about, and I was wondering why Crowder was popping so much for me. And I like Crowder anyway. And the Jets have, look, I think this new regime for the Jets has a little bit more pride than previous regimes, whatever you want to call it, whatever's happened to the least successful franchise in North America of any kind. But you knew it was going to be a game where they were going to try and show Crowder out a little bit because there was a trade deadline this week. Now he wasn't traded, and I don't know that maybe they need to target him as much. They could definitely be an argument made for Elijah Moore being the number one receiver-ish in this situation. Now, Crowder's a proud guy. He's tough. Berrios is like the poor man's Crowder in general. They've got a lot of receivers out there. I might go to the Elijah Moore thing. I do prefer Crowder for what it's worth, but I think Elijah Moore has some serious big play upside. I don't trust the defensive backs for Indy. And like I said, Berrios, my issue with him is that he's a little bit of he's like the little version of Crowder. He's like the poor man's version. Keelan Cole, I mean, again, if that catch would have counted, I think that would have actually led to some buzz for this week, because that was an all-time great catch that didn't count. And had it counted,
narrative there. If they can control it somehow and get him another one. I mean,
no, there's something. Yeah, but I don't think we're going to put the control in the Jets team. I do like the Jets over. I think they're going to score more than 17.5 points in the dome. But the other guy, there's just so like they really rate Keelan Cole and Denzel Mims really highly, but Elijah Moore is not going to rate very highly. And I would say that maybe that's the thing you could do to get different, is to play Crowder or Moore. I'm not, well, Crowder's not anything different, but Moore, and maybe instead of these other guys who's going to project much worse than Keelan Cole and Denzel Mims. But I do think Mims and Cole are certainly in play, and probably the better plays. Elijah Moore is the young, guy with some talent. Hasn't really had that game we expected. He was everyone's favorite darling week 1, and he had 0.7 fantasy points. But we have seen him with back-to-back double-digit performances, even though one was only on, I believe he only had one catch, but it was a touchdown. Oh no, he hit a rushing touchdown. He's got some speed. They're going to get him involved in some weird plays, and I just think that you're going to see what's his name throwing it to whoever he can find. White. And by the way, Tyler Kroft caught a touchdown pass last week as well, so he belongs in the conversation. But I would say my favorite is Crowder, followed by Cole, followed by Mims, just numbers wise. But because of ownership and everything and the way it plays out, I would say Elijah Moore. And if you play Elijah Moore and Tyler Johnson in your lineups, or Ty Johnson, I should say, I think that's a good way to get different. I kind of like this slate too, Sheets. I feel like I can get some places. And then let's talk about Indy receivers. Okay, so Indy receivers are a little bit trickier. I love the Dolan thing. I think that's the obvious place everyone's going to go. And hopefully his not having any sort of semblance of a game this season will help them, because if you look in these games, they're looking for him downfield. There was a 35-yard bomb, and that's a real bomb for Carson Wentz.
Yep. He had to ice his arm up after that.
Yeah, exactly. But he does feel comfortable with guys like Pascal, and Pittman is clearly the best receiver on the team. I don't think anyone's going to question that. Pittman, really, really impressed by him in general. But Pascal instead of Pittman, sort of to go along with the Elijah Moore thing instead of whatever. I do think Pascal is the kind of guy who could be successful on these like little short routes, because Carson Wentz wants to get rid of the ball fast. Pittman, they're going to look for on big plays. They'll look for him on small plays too, but he often needs time to go to Pittman. I think I kind of like the idea of maybe taking a little bit of Pascal in there. But I love the Ashton Dolan thing. I think that's that's actually not even a bad captain.
What do you think of the kickers and defenses today?
Well, and the problem with the passing game for Indy also is they have legitimately 2 tight ends who one of them could get all the work, one of them could get none of the work. They both might split a lot of work. It's really hard to figure out which way it's going to go. Because he's projecting worse, I would say maybe try Jack Doyle instead of Mo Alley Cox. The defenses I think are in play, especially like as much as my newfound love for Mike White, who I have to say his name is Mike White. He looks like a guy who, got beat up in kindergarten or something. And he comes out there and he's pumping his fist, and he's a tough guy. He made some incredible reads. Even that play that Cole caught, he made that read in like a quarter of a second, because the defense was there. The second the ball was snapped, the defense was on him, and he threw this perfect fade. I was incredible. Anyway, I'm a big fan, but I do think that the Indy defense is definitely interesting. I like the idea of playing the Jets defense if you want to save some money. We know Carson Wentz. We saw what happened last week. The guy will throw a touchdown to the other team if you get pressure. So I would, even though I like the Indy defense, I'm going to give the Jets a little bit of the boost in this one. And I also think they'll be lower owned and they're cheaper. Is that too much stuff? I feel like I just went through a ton of information.
No, I thought that was perfect. I'm probably not going to get to either of the defenses, just because I just kind of like the other plays. That's the best I can describe it.
I totally agree.
You know, and in the past, like maybe 5 or 6 weeks, honestly, I've been getting to defenses and kickers more because I just didn't really have any good plays.
Right.
I kind of like these plays today, so I don't know if I need to do that with kickers and defenses. Look, in a dome, the kickers are going to have a nice day, right? That's one thing you could say. I mean, they're okay, but I just don't see the kickers. I don't know what best I can describe. I just don't see the kickers in the optimal tonight. You know, I just think the skilled people are just going to get it done. That's the best.
Yeah, but also like Indy. I mean, Indy's a team that likes to go for it on 4th down, and based on the situation, the Jets might be having to go for it on 4th down. So
yeah, there you go.
But I really do like the Jets tonight. I really do. I mean, I could be like, I always feel nervous when I have that strong of a stance, but when I'm going to try and convey it the way that I feel it, and I do feel like the Jets have an excellent chance to do that. To look, I understand, and those of you, and I don't know what Sheets put in a survivor pool, and I think Indy is obviously, if you haven't used whatever, it would make sense on paper. And I believe in Indy's talent around, you know, I really do. But I think that there is something for momentum for this guy, finding something for the Jets having nothing to play for, and a little bit of pride, you know, coming back after that Cleveland loss. I'm sorry, the New England loss. And in my opinion, they beat a team that I think is significantly better than Indy last week on the road. So I am not going to say that they can't come in here on a Thursday and do it again. I'm going to turn into a Jets fan if I keep talking. So I probably should shut up. I really think that here's the recipe for winning tonight. And this is a very basic thing. This is how you start your lineup. Okay. You start with one of the Jets running backs. I think you probably want one of the Indy running backs, but I don't think it's as necessary as the Jets ones. I think you need one quarterback from one of, at least, if not both. I think you need, sound like very basic things, one wide receiver. That's sort of 4 of your spots right there, okay? So what do you do with the other 2 spots is really where the question comes up, and which ones do you choose for that? I will probably lean the 2 running back thing with the Jets, but I'll probably force myself to play Ty Johnson, even though I'm a big fan of Carter and I like what he can do. I think Ty Johnson is the way I may go, and I might use Taylor on the other side. For my quarterback spot, I think I want to use White over Wentz, and unlike Wentz with Taylor, there is some correlation there, but for the most part, you're going to get better correlation out of the Jets to the Jets running to White to the Jets running backs, just because they're going to be forced to, and they catch more passes, unless Naheem Hines needs to, and they're down big. And then as far as the one receiver situation goes, the reason I don't say 2 receivers is because I think the tight ends are in play, both Croft and Doyle, especially for me. And then if you use 2 receivers and you want to go and you're going to play White, let's say you're going to play Carter because you feel better about him, just make sure that that's when you can play the Elijah Moore. You don't necessarily need to play Elijah Moore and Ty Johnson in the same lineup, but I'm telling you right now that if you do that, you will be off the board, at least somewhat. So, and then Braxton Berrios, maybe play him instead of the other cheap guys in Cole and Mims. That's the other way to get ahead in this one.
I'll tell you something. I want to give a little shout out to a company I don't usually give a shout out to. So I talk about how I use SaberSim most of the time to do my optimizing, especially on showdown slates, because it provides a lot of randomness and all the stuff. And I don't worry too much about grouping over there, just more simming it out. So I want to give a shout out to Roto Grinders HQ for this particular slate, okay? Because one thing that they do, I think they do very, very well, is make it easier for you to do groups over there. So if you were going to play a slate like this, I think that on this particular slate, I think groups are pretty important. Like I wouldn't play, for example, like 3 receivers from either of the teams. You know what I mean? Like on this particular slate. And I probably wouldn't play, like a running back from the Jets with 2 receivers from the Jets also. So if I use SaberSim for these types of optimizers, I might get lineups that I might not want. But if you go to Roto Grinders HQ, and if you go to our Discord, what's his name? Rody does a pretty good video on how to use it also. on how to use the optimizers over there and how to set groups. I think this is a good slate for that. You know what I mean? To make sure you don't get, I don't know, like I don't want Crowder and like, I don't know, like three. I don't want three receivers from the Jets. Like for example, I might want two, but stuff along the lines of what Bobby was saying. Like if maybe you don't want to play Ty Johnson with such and such. You know, I think that this is actually a good Roto Grinders HQ slate when it comes to Hockmeyers. I'm gonna probably use them to build some of my lineups tonight.
I agree, but I have one thought on rules that maybe you're not going to like it. Be careful with your rules because like you could definitely play. I mean, look, the Jets, if you played both their running backs last Sunday on the main slate, you would have been in great shape. Much less.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But usually, again, I'm like the opposite. I usually don't care too much about the rules or the correlation or any of it, which is why I usually don't mind getting it. I just have a weird feeling that for this particular slate, you're not going to want that. I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I think that, I do think that, you know, I do like the Roto Grinders setup because I'm used to it. I don't max enter very often, which is probably, I mean, a huge mistake because I think when I do max enter, whenever it's the cheaper ones or whatever, I've done incredibly well with these things, including I've played twice my life. I've played the entire Sunday thing, and I had a fourth and I had a seventh, and the two times that I max entered everything. So, and I give Roto Grinders lineup HQ a lot of credit for that. All right, Sheets, anything else before we get out of here? And we'll talk about this stuff on our show. I have to do a show with Rody tonight, so I've got to get in touch with him. But yeah, I want to.
I am going to be around fully from 6 to 7, actually. Okay. So if let's say we have to close down the NBA stuff a little early, I could still talk about the football. I mean, but it's a pretty handy NBA slate, which is not going to be decided until like 9 o'clock anyway, because the 8 news, you know, won't come out till then anyway. Yeah. So maybe we'll spend a little more time on the on the showdown, because honestly, I don't think we're really waiting for any particular news over there. So I think we can break that down a little bit.
I love it. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Good luck, everybody. And we will see you this evening.